Google wins a key privacy battle in the EU. I'm Marco Perri. Welcome to the Perri platform. Today's episode is going to revolve around the right to be forgotten. But before we get to that, first, Google recently won a court battle against the EU in regards to the personal privacy world. This ruling has the international community asking questions because the EU has special rights online that other countries do not have, and they desire them. The battle in court revolves around the concept of a right to be forgotten online. Europe has that. The rest of the world does not. So, what does all of that mean? Really, the right to be forgotten is a law that requires search engines to remove web results that people do not want associated with themselves. The process really is relatively simple. If you see something online that you don't like and it's attached to your name, maybe it's damaging or irrelevant, you can submit a request to the search engine to have it taken down, and that is now your right. It is your entitlement, and the search engine cannot deny you. When a company like Google gets that request from a citizen, the search results are not going to be deleted per se, but they will be delisted, which basically means they won't show up anymore. So this law came into effect in 2014 in Europe, and since then, Google has received 845,000 removal requests. Apparently there's a lot of stuff out there that people do not want floating around. In the Canadian context, we currently do not have a legal process like that, and it's not our right to have search results that we don't like to be delisted. This right to be forgotten has both cons and negatives to it though, so don't feel too bad. We truly be remiss to think it's 100% positive, so let's go over that for a little bit. You can imagine a good situation of the right being used properly when something like this happens. Let's say in high school, you posted some embarrassing photos, or you wrote a silly blog post, or you were in the newspaper for some public mischief. Now you're a grown adult who's matured, but you can't land a serious job because every time your employer screens you, things from 20 to 30 years ago keep popping up and they ruin your chances. That's a pretty unfair situation, I would say, and it creates a toxic culture where improvement and learning are not really relevant. It's about being perfect from day one, or you're basically finished if anything comes out about some of the accidents and mistakes that you have committed in your past. But how about a scenario that's not as clearly good? What if something like a politician wants to erase all evidence of a change they initiated, a policy they passed, something they voted on? What if a politician has an election coming up and they use this right to be forgotten to make people forget about their track record in office? Next thing you know, the very essence of fact becomes obscure, and that's really where the danger is. You take away things that have been recorded, essentially history, the facts about it, and now you make it subjective. If somebody doesn't want it, they can submit this request and have it taken away. It doesn't matter if it's factual or not. If the person deems it to not want to be associated with their profile any longer, vanishes. Kind of scary. If you follow that rabbit hole all the way down, you quickly get to a scenario where the entire government obtains this right to be forgotten, and we enter the world of 1984. What about not even that extreme? What if corporations, which are legally recognized as individuals, get this right too? Anything that they don't like associated with their brand, we take it off. Any scientific reports that we don't like associated with us, we take it off. The past history of our stocks, we take it off. There's a lot of ill uses for this clause. It's not just about benefiting the average person who made a mistake here and there. There are so many instances where it can lead to great evil. This really has a dystopian potential here, and it feels like some of the parties who are asking for this and advocating for it are not looking that far into the future to really grasp that idea. The positives here can be great, and I must admit I do like them, but the negatives can be tremendous as well. Even look at that right there, the name itself, the right to be forgotten. It comes with a tinge of conceit right there. Let's forget. Let's forget about facts. Let's forget about history. Let's just craft the narratives we want and disregard reality. Even the criteria the commissioners set of inaccurate information, incomplete information, or outdated stuff leaves a lot of room for interpretation. Within that, you can wreak a lot of havoc depending on who you are. I've made a distinction. There's a difference between an average Joe using it to clear his reputation and a politician or a corporation, or worst of all, the government making use of that right. Google has actually come forward and stated they consider de-indexing in Canada to be unconstitutional. They honestly may have a point. It all depends on how the right is implemented. Google makes the claim that it's a slippery slope, and I'm glad they do. That's really the truth of it. Often, tech companies are all for slippery slopes though, so I did find it ironic. They love slippery slopes. Censorship, deplatforming, it's all cool, but hey, at least they see a red flag with delisting. Their official statement is, removing lawful information from a search engine limits access to media properties, past decisions by public officials, and information about many other topics. And that is 100% correct. These are things to consider when traversing these waters of delisting. Now, back to this ruling. So France was in court with Google because they wanted to expand their rights. Currently, you can only get delisted on the European search engines, and France wanted that to be international. They wanted Google to remove content worldwide, not just in Europe. Google says, hold up, that sounds like a pretty bad idea. We're going to take you to court on this one, and Google wins. The ruling is that they do not have to provide the service globally, but within Europe, it will still exist. Now, back to the Canadian context here. The CBC did a report on this issue, and they found, based on the Angus Reid Institute survey, that last year, 51% of respondents who were Canadian adults were in favor of a right to be forgotten online and to have the power to change and manipulate search engine results. Only 23% said that erasing negative information means erasing history and facts. You can see there that the slim majority likes the idea, and less than 1/4 fear erasing history and fact. I'm not too sure why they didn't agree with that last point, because literally, erasing negative information is erasing history and fact. If it happened, if it's information, it's fact, and you're still erasing it. So that comes with the proposal. That's what it's really about. It comes down to context, though. If you're using it to clear up some embarrassing picture or some worthless story about you from 20 years ago, then yeah, go for it. We actually might need something like that. But if it falls into the pocket of politicians and it becomes a political tool, they use it to masquerade facts, use it to change history, how can anyone say that that is worth the bargain here? That is a disastrous future, and we can't be accepting proposals if those kind of things are possible. Now, I'm no fan of digging up the past to destroy people, and I've actively spoken out against that. It's a toxic habit, and we see that in our current politics with Justin Trudeau. I'm not going to get too into that right now, but we just need to be careful that when searching for a solution, we do not end up creating a bigger problem by accident. That's hard to do, and I feel like this right here could be doing just that. We're caught in these rights and rules, but there's also a fact beneath all of that. It might not be that we need certain laws to protect our privacy in this nature. It might just be that we need the protection because of our current culture and the political climate. People are choosing to expose one another and hold things from the past over your head. That's a choice. People are doing it actively. Now we want to legislate that away without tackling the root cause. The problematic behavior and the culture, the mindset, it's still festering. All we're really doing with this proposal is hiding the outlet. I'm pretty sure people are going to find a way to take those toxic thoughts and just channel it via a different means. Maybe they shame you extra hard for things on your social media right now. You know, it's really a deep down ingrained cultural thing that should be tackled first. Society has to shift towards a more reasonable stance on topics like this. That's how we get a more permanent solution. Just putting a band-aid or hiding things or moving things around, you don't really solve the issue. And it feels like in today's world, that's a lot of the solutions that we're presented with. It's nothing really to do about you and changing what you think and adapting. It's changing your very environment. And I'm not too sure that's going to do well for us when it comes to long-term solutions, because the actual root of the issue is not tackled, it's not remedied, it's just left alone. It will resurface at one point or another. Even right now, trends like cancel culture, they don't really help anything. They actually probably end up growing the issue even further. If we want real change, we have to make digging up people's past and holding it against them not acceptable, not popular as a society. We have to change it from the root. If we see it happening, we have to condemn it. When the media does it, we have to say that's not cool, we don't support that. We want to judge people based on who they are now and what they've done in the recent history. And if we have an approach like that, we can still be logical because it's a human reasoning thing and not mandated by law. We do need that logic because of these situations like with politicians or corporations. If somebody's trying to hide something that they did that we know is still relevant today and it actually affects their career, like what projects they did as a politician, we want to know that. What did they do with certain bills? We need to see these kind of things, and the right to be forgotten, I feel like doesn't have to apply to them. But once we spread it out universally, it will slip into those cracks. It's only a matter of time. Simply put, we're trying to take the legal and legislative approach to this when all we really do need is a cultural shift. And at the end of the day, I'm not even fully convinced that we do have a right to be forgotten. Is that something we should just enshrine into the Constitution? Something that is universally yours? An inalienable right to be forgotten? We don't really have ownership over anybody's memory, and this implies that we do. We can force you to forget something about us because we don't like it. I'm not too sure I like where that's going. Now, I'm open to the idea. Maybe this has to be fleshed out, expanded upon, get some safeties built in, and then it'll be okay. But right now, the downsides that Google has rightfully identified, they are pressing matters, and they have to be taken seriously. That's one reason why the court ruled in favor of Google. I'm not too sure what France was thinking, trying to expand this beyond Europe into the whole world. There hasn't been nearly enough thinking about it, and I get it. Privacy is a big issue these days in data protection and whatnot, but you don't want to be creating bigger problems in the pursuit of a solution. It's counterproductive. So that brings me to the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining me on the Perri platform. If you enjoy the content, be sure to leave a review and share. You can find me on Twitter at Perri Platform. I'll see you soon.